But what is the best rep range to build muscle? And for a long time it was 6 sets of 6, really classic, and then 4 sets of 8, and it's still pretty common, and after that 3 sets of 12 dominated the general guideline. However, there is still a best rep range to build muscle, and it's not just my opinion, but let me give you the reasons. But before we do that, there is something you need to understand. It is more about how hard you train, and if you remember that, everything else is going to be clearer. And it really pisses me off when someone gives this general broad advice of, oh, just do low, moderate, high reps. They're all the same if you are taking them close to failure. And it gets even worse when they include things like, just change it up from training to training, and so on. Include them all. And this is partially true, but it gives so little insight on why you should follow what they are advising you to do. And this is just my opinion, but I'm pretty sure you notice that it is always the not naturals that have the craziest claims. Don't do progressive overload, I grew without that. Do only light weights and partials, I grew with that. Only do supersets, I grew with that. Man, are you sure that's how you grew and it has nothing to do with the juicing? Anyway, don't get distracted from the topic. It is always the last 3 to 5 reps that are stimulating muscle growth. So if you think about it logically, if you are doing 15 reps, what was that initial 10 reps for? It was just to fatigue you and stimulate nothing. Let's say that you are only doing 5 exercises, 3 sets each. That's 15 sets total, and you are spending 66% of the time exerting yourself for nothing. And it gets worse. It's a compounding effect. It's not just a one-off. So we can call it a junk volume, because essentially it is just that. Not to mention, it also forces the lifter to maintain focus for a longer time, and it gets harder and harder as your training progresses. And let's be honest, the average Joe goes to the gym and can probably only focus on the first exercise, maybe on the second one, and everything else just goes to shit after that. And this is just my first reason why maybe moderate to high reps are not the best way to build muscle. It's certainly viable, it's just not the best. Doing a set longer is going to invite cardiovascular fatigue and muscle burn. And these are still widely spread as a muscle building stimulus, when in fact it literally does the opposite. It's the opposite. It is really difficult to push your sets to failure when 10 reps away from it, your muscles are screaming from the scorching pain. And you can say that it was a good pain, it still stimulated nothing. There was no stimulus. And these are my 2 reasons as to why the best way to build muscle, it's going to be in the low range, 5 to 9, because anything above that, the set is going to take longer to finish, it will require your attention more and your focus, and it is also going to invite these discomforts like muscle burn, cardiovascular fatigue. So we can say that you're just spending most of your time fatiguing yourself and getting nothing out of it. And there are so many things that are just against you. They just want to stop you, stop the exercise. But this is the thing, there is always a counter argument. But what about the isolation exercises like lateral raise? You can't use a heavy weight and do low rep ranges. But here is the thing, that exercise is only hard because of the moment arm. So that means that a lighter weight is going to feel heavier. But let's assume for a second that you have a healthy shoulder. You don't feel any pain at all. It's not going to be an issue then. Because usually what's stopping people from going heavy is the shoulder pain. They just don't have a healthy shoulder. And it doesn't have to be both, it can be just one. And I have coached many people who had no problems with their shoulders, and they can easily go up to 15-17 kilogram dumbbells doing 5 to 8 reps on the lateral raise. It is not about the isolation exercise, it's more about the type of exercise you are doing in terms of where it is loading the muscle, where the muscle is stronger, the potential risk and anatomical differences. Like, you can't say that a hamstring curl is the same as a Nordic hamstring curl, even though both are isolation exercises. I recommend the 5 to 9 rep ranges, and you can gradually increase your weight within that with a small 3 reps wiggle room. So that means that if you do your first set and you got 10, 11, 12 reps, that means that for the second set you can increase the weight, and if you get anything in between 7 to 8, for the third rep it is going to drop down. Then for the next day or even the next week when you are repeating the same training, you know that you can start with a heavier weight. Seems like in the UK we don't have sun. For hypertrophy, periodization is meaningless. You should keep your rep ranges the same because it is easier to measure your progression. Only if you want to see the best result It doesn't mean that you can't go below that though. And rep ranges are more important for intermediate lifters. A beginner is going to grow from anything, but it is the hardest transition to grow from intermediate to advanced lifter. And sometimes it takes as little as understanding where to put the majority of your workload, what you do in the gym. That is about it for me, guys. Talk to you soon.